Sometimes it feels like my response to stress is that I want to explode, or my brain shuts down. Then I remember that's actually a consequence of stress. Something happens between exposure to a stressor, or the millionth exposure, and the explosion, or the other outcome. So what does happen? Why do some things cause stress for me and others don't? Why do some of the things that cause me stress not bother other people? Good questions. When we're thinking about responses to stress, we're thinking about more in-the-moment physiological and psychological reactions to the stressor, which lead to outcomes. We also have parallel processes, though, which are sometimes called coping and sometimes called prevention strategies. Those help us understand more about the differences in responses. One part of the process appears to be called something called cognitive appraisal. Basically, something in our mind makes a decision about whether something's going to be bad. There are different, more nuanced ways to explain the actual label that we apply. Threat assessments and hindrance-related assessments would be in the category I combine into bad. Coping also goes along with the response to stress. And again, there are a lot of ways to categorize coping options. One theory refers to problem-focused and emotion-focused coping, referring to what part of the process is involved. Our book talks about the idea that coping strategies can focus on modifying or eliminating the stressor, which would be like problem-focused, or they can focus on changing the response or minimizing negative outcomes. Emotion-focused coping would fit with either the modified response or the modified outcome. Seeking social support is a specific coping strategy, and research has identified 4 types of support that are helpful in reducing the effects of stress. As you're reading about social support, you might notice a couple of things. One is that we don't just receive social support from friends, family, and coworkers. Some forms of support are from doctors, therapists, or other professionals. Another thing you might notice is that talking about stressors is only indirectly included in social support. That fits with the idea that rumination, or focusing on negative thoughts, can add to stress. So is social support a secondary prevention strategy, tertiary, problem-focused, or emotion-focused? That relates to what's called the buffer, or the moderator hypothesis. In stress research, that's the theory that social support helps reduce the negative effect of stress. If the negative effects are the outcome, then social support will be a secondary strategy. Thinking about all of these ideas, the initial reaction to the stressor seems to be primarily influenced by cognitive appraisal. Some secondary prevention strategies can also be practiced to the point that they're unconscious and influence the physical and psychological responses. Various coping strategies also influence the relationship between the response and the outcome, or the cumulative effects of the outcome. Those can be either secondary prevention strategies or tertiary, depending on the focus.